None of that has been acknowledged. So some Aboriginal people are going to turn their back on this so-called consultation process. But what Malcolm Fraser and Alistair Nicholson wrote in very considered letters to the government was to say, get this right. It is your lawful responsibility as a government to genuinely consult. And that means exposing yourself to the criticism of those that don't like what you are doing, listening to those that might support parts of it, and giving a truthful report. The reports that have come so far, interestingly, even the published government reports, show very major criticism. They parade a few people who will say, anything that stops the humbugging, you know, so the shameful discrimination of the basics card, where if we go to the supermarket together in Alice Springs now, or in Katherine, and you will literally see Aboriginal people with the basics card on one line. And I'll tell you, standing there with my family, or with Ian Thorpe, it's abhorrent. We do not accept it, and I don't walk through that store without letting the cash register person or the manager know that this is abhorrent. It is discrimination. And adding on a community here or there in a couple of welfare quarantine trials is just another sinister big lie, expecting us to believe that this is really not aimed at Aboriginal people. Extending a bit of poison does not mean you are not using poison. That welfare quarantining has not worked anywhere on earth. I went to Alberta, Canada, and I looked at another application of it to what they call tough love for dole bludgers. It was a social disaster. They have not looked at the damage this is doing. They are continuing stubbornly with the big lie, which is to claim that this is for the benefit of Aboriginal people. But that's not what our law, our English common law says. The Aboriginal people themselves must be the ones to decide whether this so-called special measure is of benefit to them. If they say no, the government does not have the right to inflict this policy on them. And that's what we've ignored here. Yes, up to that. You're running out of time. This will be the last one.
Okay. Actually, just as I was watching the film, I was thinking, what point brings us all together? What point makes it applicable to all Australians? And the figures are in there. The thing that brings it together for all of us is that we were lied to. So this is a lie. So the reason the intervention happened is a lie. You proved it in the movie, right? And that point is applicable to all Australians. So we don't really want to be manipulated or lied to by our governments. So you've shown that our government, again, has lied to us. And we can't trust our politicians. Now that interests, I think, everyone in this country, or should. And that ties into your first point. You introduced this thing at the beginning in a way by talking about the Murdochs. It's the same thing, in a way, how we're manipulated as people.
Look, that great playwright, Arthur Miller, said, and I think he said it with a degree of sadness, that the measure of political leadership in our age seems to be leaders who will lie to their own people and are willing to kill. And by that he meant willing to send troops off to a war, often built on a lie. Now, I don't need to list for you the numbers of times just recently we've been lied to. But the point you make about this was a particularly shameful, vicious big lie. I can't think in Australia, in my time as a journalist, of one that will be more damaging in the human sense. We were lied to as well about babies overboard. We were lied to when the government used ex-army people were being secretly trained in Dubai to come back here and kick wharfies around on the docks. We were lied to about that. We were lied to about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. But this is a lie in the heart of the country against the people who own and shape this land. It is a lie that goes to the heart of who we are. Because if we accept this lie, we are going to go on lying, the lie that is linked to Terra. We are looking right through Aboriginal people and lying. and saying, no, but you can't look after your children. See, that's what we're doing here. That is the great pain of the lie. That the voices in this film are saying those women on the homelands would never usually talk to anyone about anything political like this. They are not political people. They are family people, community people. And so for them, the pain of the lie is such that they had to speak up. And someone like Janini Gondra, who you haven't heard of, I know 100 years from now, Aboriginal people will sing his name like we do now for Lingiari, or Cooper, or Ferguson, all of those great people who fought for freedom. That's the important thing. You know, we must not allow our government to lie and lie and lie. There is a lie there, a deceit in the current response of the government, because they will not admit that they were wrong. I know Kevin Rudd agreed to this because he did not want to be wedged by John Howard, and having signed on to that, even the man that stood there and apologised and said we will not allow this to happen, we are allowing it to happen unless we challenge the lie. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
I want Cass Moody to come up. This evening wouldn't have happened without Cass. If you see banners around, if you see posters around, if you saw the article in the Manly Daily, it's because of Cass Moody, who is doing she's going to bring that on our behalf.
We just want to thank Jeff, the Avalon Baptist Group and the church. Are very grateful to him. He gives so much of himself and so much energy to helping people. But I think we really, really must appreciate it, and we've just given him a tiny little gift just to show that we really appreciate and are grateful to him for explaining the situation to us. Thank you very much.
I love it because you remind me of the people in what is part of my family in that film. I love it that you just keep trying to fight things that are wrong, and that you're in a wonderful organisation and that you have a relationship with this church. It is our community, and it's a good thing to keep the fight going here. Thank you very much.
Okay, now for the food. We have 2 tables. We have 9 different kinds of soup. We have bread. We have coffee and tea and some cookies in the back. We can't serve you all at one time. So, but if you want to take turns going back, there will be people there to serve you. Please stay and talk to each other. Lynn will be around to continue the conversation. There are posters over here about the local Aboriginals. There's information at the back. There are lots of things you can do. Please act. Welcome.